And here we are, live once again.
Hey, here we are once again, the Ron and John Show.
Brought to you by Veterans Lending Group. How you doing, brother?
Good, man. You know that we're known coast to coast like butter and toast, that we can make ISIS surrender or die, or we can even make the nerdiest guy look kind of fly. We can drink like we've been singing all night long, or we can sing like we've been drinking all night long. So, hey, to our audience, thanks for being here, because if you're looking for a good time, you didn't have to delay, because tune into me and this Ranger, because we lead the way. Boom.
All the way, baby. All the way. Boom.
What's going on, brother?
You know, just I'm enjoying the heck out of this sunshine, brother. I mean, it's been fantastic. You know, all through last week and the weekend, got to sing a little karaoke, you know. Got to clear the pipes up to prepare for what's going on this weekend over at the compound.
You know what karaoke is all about. Karaoke is a bunch of people that shouldn't be drinking, listening to a bunch of people that shouldn't be singing. It's all good. It's all fun. And by the way, you and I got a 91 on Blink 182, man.
We did get a 91, and I think that's our song. So you know, regardless of where we're at, if there's a karaoke machine around, we got to hit it. We got to hit it.
Hey, this was a great week for me, and you know, it kind of culminated with today when I reconnected with a guy that I had not seen in over 13 years. A guy named Nicholas Bailey that was wounded during an attack in Baghdad, and the last time I saw him is when John Lair, my boss, and I pinned his Purple Heart on him.
Oh,
and so that reconnection was so important today, and we talked, and we're looking to do a reunion, you know. But also this week, you know, last Friday I got to do something, so it's about New Horizons too. Last Friday, you know, it was 4 years ago, the most nervous I ever was in front of an audience was speaking to 12,000 people at the Verizon Center in Washington, D.C. for a WWE tribute to the troops. And I thought that would be the most nervous I was ever going to be. Well, I did a Zoom call on Friday with 20 6 to 12-year-old kids, and they are part of this cadet force for Centurion Military Alliance. And the brief I got said that the previous guest they had was a major corporate CEO who talked to the kids, and they asked the kids, how did he do? And the kids said, boring. You know, that kid's good. So I was a little worried that I needed to. So I brought my grandson and granddaughter, David and Melody, out. I used them here. We did some interactive stuff with the kids, asked them what they wanted to do when they grew up, their favorite color and all this stuff, and talked about, you know, empathy, inclusion, understanding, and everything. And it was a phenomenal time. So, you know, reconnections and New Horizons is what it has been for me the past week, brother.
That's awesome, brother. You know, I linking up, had a couple Ranger buddies come through. Griff came by the other day, actually came by on Monday. Yep. Yeah. And we were able to have a cup of coffee with another Ranger and veteran here, Maddie Waters, who's a Tacoma police officer, also amputee, interesting enough. But you know, and I think that's what it's about is this New Horizons. What are we going to do together? How are we forging together and moving forward? And it's good to reconnect, you know, and a change. You know, a lot of times we don't like change, but change can be good, and it's like you're talking about with these New Horizons. And I'm sure that has something to do with what's going on with our guest today.
Absolutely. You know, for 4 years as the SEAC, I was, you know, we did a very good job at the senior enlisted, at the Defense Senior Enlisted Leader Council, all the service senior enlisted and combatant command senior enlisted. We had a pretty good racial diversity in the audience, you know. I mean, out of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Senior Enlisted Advisor, the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps was African-American. So was Kay Wright, who's been on the show, African-American. Yeah. And across the combatant commands, we were, you know, pretty good diversity. But gender diversity, we just could not. I mean, I was looking at talent out there, and it just never happened in 4 years. And it's never happened that we've had a female serve as a senior enlisted leader for one of our services in the history of the United States military. Well, that's going to change here in the next month or two. as our guest, takes over as the 19th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. She just recently left 2nd Air Force as the command chief. We worked extensively together for 4 years when I was in SEAC, and it was no surprise to me when she got selected, and she has broken this glass ceiling now and is one of our service senior enlisted leaders. So let's go ahead and bring her out.
There she is. Joe Bass. Welcome to the show, Joe.
I've been in the back room just laughing at that story because, John, I thought, man, if I talk to those kids from CMA in a few weeks and I ask them how was John Troxell and they say boring, then I know I'm in there.
Yeah. Hey, so how are you doing, Joe?
Life is good. Let me tell you, it's been a whirlwind. I got announced on the 19th of June, and I am already in DC. We've had our household goods for about a week, and we've gotten the house settled there on Andrews Air Force Base. I have not taken leave like most of our brothers and sisters in the services since pre-COVID. And so today I started some much needed leave. So speaking of connecting with folks, I'm reconnecting with some dear military friends of ours that we were previously stationed together, and there's nothing quite like it. And so I'm in their home visiting with them. And so if you see or hear some kiddos or doggies running around, I'm on leave, and it is what it is.
Hey, that's great. Yeah. Hey, so let's we want the audience to know who Joe Bass is. I know you very well. You know, you're a dear friend of mine. But tell us about Joe Bass and you know, your career and you know how you kind of focus to get to where you're at now in the position that you're in now.
All righty. Well, I'll do my best. Well, first, Ron and John, thanks for having me on the show. Ron, it's a pleasure to meet you. I've gotten a chance to watch a few of your shows previously, and I laughed because I was like, well, man, I don't have a weapon or anything to start throwing around. But thanks for having me on the show and allowing me an opportunity just to chat with your audience. So I've been serving in the Air Force for 27 years. I'm an Army brat. My dad retired as a Army warrant officer. So we grew up all over the world, spent quite a bit of time in Germany, and graduated high school in Mililani, Hawaii. Thought I would join the Air Force and do 4 quick years. That was the plan. I joined and really started to enjoy what I was doing. At the 4-year mark, I needed to pay off my Honda Civic. So like a good airman, I re-enlisted, deployed quite a bit, and probably about the 8-year mark started to understand what it really meant about serving in our Air Force. And, you know, when I joined, I really did join for the educational benefits and to try to figure life out. But ironically, I had an opportunity to work at some amazing organizations. I spent quite a few years with Air Force Special Operations Command and Joint Special Operations Command, where I've gotten a chance to meet some of the greatest service members that I know. CZ obviously worked together with me there at the 2-4. And that was really a life-altering experience, understanding more of the why. And service is way more, and wearing our nation's cloth is way more than getting my GI Bill benefits. And so so it shaped my life. You know, I came in as an aviation resource manager, so I spent a whole lot of time in the ops community, understanding ops, but I was also support, so I could understand and bridge the connection between what our very critical support folks do with respects to the operations. About that 19-year mark, I got picked up as a chief, and then got picked up to be a command chief, where it was probably the highlight of my career to go to Goodfellow Air Force Base, Texas. I was there for about 14 months when I got the phone call from the Pentagon, the dreaded phone call that we want you to come here. And I shouldn't say that, but can we be real on the
Absolutely.
show?
Absolutely. 100%.
So,
gotta be.
You know, the dreaded phone call, you know, and I remember telling my husband, who was stationed at Fort Hood at the time, you know, like, I mean, why is the Air Force calling me? Why do they want me to be the chief of PME? I think they got it wrong. They have the wrong BAS. I mean, maybe they heard me talking crap about PME. I didn't know. So in any case, went there for 2 years to be the chief of PME. And what's interesting is a job that I almost didn't go to because I almost hit the retirement button. That's how much I did not want to go to the Pentagon. Ended up being one of the best, most rewarding jobs I've ever had. Just learning about, what happens in that 5-sided building and how to make enterprise level change, and really getting a thorough understanding of how much our senior leaders care about our service members and families were some valuable lessons. And then from there, I got picked up to go to the 2nd Air Force, where that was a highlight of my career as well, where I could go to Keesler Air Force Base, where I started my technical training and got to help influence growing Air Force leaders. And that's a passion of mine, and being able to build airmen from the very foundation of basic training through technical training. And now I'm here.
So that was like about a month ago that we talked when you were down at 2nd Air Force.
That was a month ago. And I failed to mention, so the rest of the most important piece of Joe Bass is that I'm married to a phenomenal retired Army husband. He retired after 27 years in the Army, and we have 2 kiddos. So life in the Bass house is busy, but they're the reason why I serve.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Just curious on how the Air Force works as far as, picking the next, chief. Like, did you know that you were in the running? Was your name in the hat? Is it,
yeah.
I mean, obviously you made the short list. Was it a big round of interviews?
It really was. I'll be honest, if you would have asked me 6 months ago, I would have said there's no way. If you would have asked me when I left the Pentagon what I want to, I would have been like, there's no way, So it is the incoming chief of staff, which also is a historic appointment of General C.Q. Brown. He will take appointment on the 6th of August. So he is my new boss, and who hired me. Once he got confirmed, the interview process started. And there's a whole lot of things behind the scenes that I'm not necessarily privy to, but he wanted to make sure that it was pretty transparent. And he took a glimpse of a whole bunch of chiefs serving at the tier 4 and 5 level. He had a team helping run that process with records reviews, and then it, the list just gets shorter and shorter and shorter until, you get to the top 3. And then, at the end of the day, probably everybody on that list is qualified. It just gets to a point where, who is that, who is the hiring authority connect with the most, and who's going to be able to get after the needs of where they're trying to go.
I say this for all the services, competing on a job like that, competing for the SEAC, a service position, a combatant command or whatever, it's like being in the mafia. It's business. It's not personal. Yeah. So when you take, in this case, I mean, all of the major command chiefs, any of the combatant command guys that might have served, but the tier 4 and 5, you put them all together, and the differences between them professionally are about as thick as this piece of paper. Yeah. So, and I sat through a process with a selecting official, a 4-star before. And I said, I don't envy you at all, sir, because you got 10 great candidates and you got to decide who gets and who doesn't. Because only one person gets the job, so everybody else is, so it's not a slight on them. It's who the selecting official is most comfortable with, and who they think will have the best impact at getting after their vision and priority.
And I will tell you, I mean, it's a very in-depth interview process where my husband got interviewed. So when he found out he was getting interviewed, he's like, "Hey babe, I'm so sorry in advance." I was like, tone the Army down, be you, but don't come off, 82nd Airborne style. And, but anyway, it was great. He did great.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, rising to the ranks and through the ranks as you have and all the different positions, you and I came in roughly the same era. I came in September 94. I think you were a year prior. But, and a lot has changed over the years from when we were in to what, the face of the military looks like now. But how have you as a female been able to work to gain the respect as a leader to rise to your past positions and where you are now?
Yeah. I will tell you that I think, not just as a female, is any service member, credibility and competency go a long way, so, and self-drive and desire to be your very best. So I can't be anybody else, I've got to be me, but I've got to have some drive, and I can't wait for a supervisor to come light the fire under me. And so I've always had a huge work ethic. I attribute that to my mom, who was born in Korea. And so she's just probably the hardest working person that I ever know, even still to this day. I always tell her, Mom, quit working, we'll take care of you. And she wants to work. So I have always had an innate drive and work ethic. But beyond that, you've got to gain competency and credibility really quick. And once you have those two things, your confidence will grow and your leaders see you, and opportunities present themselves once your leaders see that in you. And so, for me, that's what it was. I never had to look for a job. Jobs found me. Right.
That's awesome. We have a question from, who it is, John?
This is our 𝘕𝘀𝘀 here, Joe. This is Ed Sullivan. He's that guy, this is the Cheers bar, and, everybody knows his name, and he has a seat. So Ed Sullivan has been on every one of our shows, even the live shows we've done, and so we call him 𝘕𝘀𝘀𝘀.
All right.
So he says, I have a question for Chief Master Sergeant Bass. First off, congrats on becoming the 19th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. Given the historic nature of your achievement, is there any particular group of people you hope to inspire, and what do you hope to inspire in them?
Awesome. Hey, great question, Ed, and thanks so much for the congratulations. I don't want to just single myself out to any particular group as far as inspiring anybody. I think that if there are folks out there who in their to themselves would think, man, that could never happen to me, I want to inspire those folks, because I was that person. Let me tell you, so since we're being honest, and I'm hoping your audience can kind of keep a, close hold information within this show. Let me tell you, so being an Army brat, I wasn't the best Army dependent. My dad used to tell me, hey, don't show up on that blotter report, which I did. Big time. It was embarrassing to him as an Army officer, but I was a dependent kid getting in trouble and got in quite a bit of trouble, even my senior year in Hawaii. And I feel like I should, if Joe Bass can make it to this pinnacle position, then every single one of you guys out there can do it. So I hope that I inspire other people. Certainly, it's not lost on me that I am inspiring women across the globe, for things like this. And I've gotten, hundreds of messages from fathers and other males who've said, hey, you've inspired my daughters or my sister or whoever. And so that's amazing. But I hope that I inspire anybody who thinks that they can't do something, because you absolutely, if I can, you can.
Yeah. Well, Joe, I'm going to ask you, it may be a difficult question, but it's a question that has to be asked. For 4 years when I was at SEAC, we had, the D-Self Fencing Senior Enlisted Leader Council that you're about to be a member of, the top 20 senior enlisted across the whole league. We had, racial diversity was pretty good in there, but gender diversity, we suck. You've been to some of those D-Self conferences, and it's like 20 guys sitting around, talking about stuff. Why do you think it, and as we look across the services at the bench of females that could compete at co-coms of the service, the bench was kind of like, why do you think that is? That we don't see a lot of females rising above that 3-star level that are able to compete. And now here you are, you've kind of broken the glass now and paved the way. Why do you think that is?
Yeah. I haven't done a run study or anything on this. I will offer 2 things that I think are contributing factors to that. One of them, I think, is that leaders tend to sponsor people that look like themselves. It feels natural, it feels comfortable. And so you tend to kind of just grab that person who sometimes looks like you. And I will tell you, while I've had mentors in my life and people who've mentored me, I don't know that I feel like I've ever had a sponsor, and that's okay. You don't necessarily need one, but I've had several mentors that have just personally been people that have spoken to me and what I needed at that time. And I bet they don't even know that they were my mentors, but I never really had a person that was guiding me to X, Y, or Z. So perhaps that's one of the things. The second thing I might offer is I think sometimes as women, we pull ourselves out of the race and for different reasons. Sometimes that's because we, have that pull between our families. If we have children or spouse or what have you, I think we pull ourselves out or it just really gets tough. If you are raising a family, and that's a joint commitment, with both parents, but if you're raising a family, let me tell you, I will speak for myself. Mom guilt is real. As I grew up in the ranks as I had certain jobs, I felt like I was trying to be 110% airman and leader and 110% spouse and 110% mom. And somewhere it just doesn't balance out and it just gets tough. And so I think that all of that is a pull. Matter of fact, I'll tell you real quick, I was on a panel years ago in Germany where it was a joint panel and there were a few of us women on there sharing how do we balance life. And I really gave them a little bit of insight on how I balance it. And it's a hot mess, but it is what it is. And about a week and a half later, I had a friend of mine call me up and say, hey, I had an NCO watching that and she heard you talk. And she had her separation paperwork in, because she just couldn't balance being an airman and a leader, a supervisor, NCO, and a mom anymore. But when she saw you talking, you could do it. She pulled her separation paperwork and said, if Chief Bass can do it, so can I. So sometimes we have to share that we have the same struggles as leaders. Here's how we overcome.
Right. That's awesome to hear. Now, I'm gonna switch things up a little bit, and because we keep it 100% real on the show. But right. I'd like to touch on it's more of a topic of that's gone across all across the military, really. And this has to do with safety and the unfortunate events that happened to that soldier in Texas, Vanessa Guillen. So, I guess my question to you is, what if there's anyone that's looking at the Air Force, male or female, what would you say as far as the future airmen of the safety of their safety, in the Air Force, because there's people that look at that and say, man, what if they can't keep us safe in the military based on all that kind of stuff? Why would I go in? So what would your advice and words be to anyone that's looking at the Air Force as a potential career, or the military in general?
So I will tell you, I have no qualms with my 2 daughters joining the United States Air Force. I don't. Fundamentally, I believe that, serving in the armed forces, we are still part of the 1% where we set ourselves apart and we have certain values, core values across all services that make us different. now we grab people from all folk, places in society, and people don't inherently come in with those core values, that they're built upon and they grow. The Joe Bass, who I was when I first came in, is very different than who I was at the 8-year mark and now at the 27-year mark. And so I would say, fundamentally, the values that we hold so dear in the United States military and our Air Force are those that we should be proud of and not be concerned about anybody's sons or daughters joining. That's my first thing. Do we have incidents and things that are just unsatisfactory? Yes, we do. And we don't condone it. We don't support it. I cannot speak to what is going on at Fort Hood and the Army side of things. I will tell you that even on the Air Force side, one is too many. One sexual assault, one sexual harassment is too many. And so it's interesting because as I've gotten this appointment, I have had more female leaders reach out to me, even female leaders who are no longer in the Air Force, to tell me, let me share with you my experience. And so that's not lost on me. It's something that we have got to get after more. And as we are having conversations, and really the conversations in the last 6 to 8 weeks have really stemmed from the racial disparities that are going outside of our fence line. I would offer that it is an opportunity to have conversations about all disparities that are happening. And most of our brothers and sisters who wear this uniform, and most of our brothers, I think, really have no idea the disparity that females have to go through, or even the male service members who they themselves, experience sexual assault or harassment. So it's something we don't talk about it. We can feel ashamed or we don't talk about it, but it's there and it's got to stop. We've got work to do.
Yeah. Yeah. John?
Hey, Joe. Yeah. One of the things I wanted to ask you, is one of the things, with your time leading Air Force education, you were big on. When I came in as the SEAC, I wanted to broaden our non-commissioned officers and petty officers to get them more joint kind of education and to get them to understand the other services, since we do fight as a joint force. You are the catalyst when we started sending enlisted to the Joint and Combined Warfighter School at the Joint Forces Staff College in Suffolk. And for the audience, it's traditionally an officer school for 04 to 06 to go to learn about joint and combined warfighting. And I asked the president of the university, I said, why aren't we sending enlisted? He kind of gave me the loser salute and said, I don't know. I said, well, we're going to do it now. And you took that on. You and Kay Wright took that on to the point that in 2 years, you had more Air Force graduates than the Army, Navy, Marines, and Coast Guard put together. What was kind of you and Kay Wright's focus then on getting this and broadening these? And oh, by the way, guess what? We were seeing how it was paying off. At one time, 6 of the 11 combatant command senior enlisted were Air Force. So,
yeah.
I mean, yeah. And I don't know that was a direct reflection on the push in education. I do know General Goldfein's focus of developing joint leaders is something that you took on. But can you kind of talk through that on what you and Kay Wright were trying to get after and how you just gained this momentum and it paid off at the highest level?
Yeah. So I will tell you, SEAC 3, that was exactly it. Our chief of staff and current chief of staff, General Goldfein's, one of his focus areas was how do we get better at developing joint leaders? We had to maximize that opportunity. Once you got the green light go that we could send our senior enlisted to an opportunity like that, it wasn't tough to be able to communicate to our senior enlisted leaders across the Air Force that we've got to maximize this. And oh, by the way, if we catch the Navy and the Army sleeping a little bit, we'll take their slots. And that's exactly what we did. So,
guilty, yeah. The Army just, you stole all the Army slots, because they were sleeping.
they were sleeping. And so that doesn't happen often. And so it was a great opportunity where we could grab, a bunch of our highly competitive senior enlisted leaders and get them some critical joint training. Our officers do it well, and we need to get better at that on the enlisted side. It's still a little bit too hodgepodge for me. So I'll tell you, we're going to work on that, you know, in the next few years with SEAC 4 and get after some of that joint development. But we are better when we understand each other's services, what we bring to the fight, and how we synergize together. And in the fight that we've got to, you know, come in, you know, in the future, it's not going to be a fair fight, and we need to have the most competitive service members that we can. And so the joint training and the joint education, and our folks want it. Every time I'm out in the field, they're constantly asking us, hey, when can we get some more joint development, some more joint training? We fight together. We need to educate together and train together. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, one of the
slots.
Yeah, took our slots. Let's see, we got some Drew Kerr here. It says, Chief.
That's our, hey Ron, that's our buddy from Fairchild Airman Leader Course, or Airman Leader School up there. Yeah, Fairchild ALS. Yeah.
There we go. Chief, what has been your approach to inspiring airmen with differing levels of commitment to service?
Man, that's a good question. You know,
I had to answer that on stage, so it's your turn now.
You got to ask that? What'd you say?
Yeah. Lips are sealed.
So you know, here's what I would offer. I think that today's airmen or service members, soldiers, sailors, Marines, they want to see some real leaders out there, and they want to see transparency. And I think that when they can see a transparent leader and they can see themselves in leaders, it's inspiring, right? And I think we have to also at times be okay with our service members have different levels of commitment. And oh, by the way, so did we. You know, if you asked me at year 3, where was my commitment level? Again, I was very self-focused. You know, what can I get out of my time in the Air Force? And oh yeah, I got to pay off my Honda Civic, so I'll re-enlist. It was not for the greater good of the United States Air Force, but through time and through the camaraderie and through great leaders, and really starting now to understand what it meant to be an Air Force family, that's when that commitment level starts to grow, and that's okay. So what I tell leaders is we shouldn't shame our airmen if they're only going to do 4 or 6 years. Who cares? You know, let them do an enlistment. What we should be able to ask our airmen if they're doing 4 or 6 years is, while you're serving, we need you to come in and kill it. We don't have a JV. If the Air Force is the smallest we've ever been today, which it is, you know, if we're the smallest Air Force we've ever been, we don't have a JV team anymore. We need you on the varsity team for the 4 or 6 years you're in. If you stay in longer, that's great. But I just need airmen committed during their time of enlistment. And if you want to go back, you know, to hometown USA, I'm okay with that, because I hope that we've provided you some good skill sets and some, you know, work ethic that you're going to be a great productive citizen when you go back into the force. That's what I hope. And so I'm good with, you know, airmen coming in and having different commitment levels. I think that strong leadership helps build commitment levels. And if they're looking at the SEAC or the Chief Master of the Air Force or the, you know, whoever, a commander, to build that commitment, is probably the wrong place. It starts at the lowest level of leadership.
Yeah, let's see. We've got.
Well, the first one was, you know, my old karaoke buddy, Sergeant Jason J. Schmidt from the old guard. It said, "You have the greatest voice for all branches." So I know you got 4 years coming up as the SIMSAF, but we'll see what happens after that, you know?
That's awesome.
Yeah, but this young Army sergeant here thinks you would probably be a good SEAC.
Hey, that, you know, that's probably the biggest compliment. And I'll tell you, you know, I'm married to an Army guy, but the fact that I had 2 Army guys asking me to be on their show, you know, you've arrived.
Yeah.
But you know, hey, but Joe, you know, I mean, service identity, you talked about service identity is important. You're proud to be an airman. I was proud to be a soldier. But when you and I worked together, I never paid attention to the uniform you were wearing. And I don't think you paid attention to the uniform I was wearing. We were just 2 leaders focused on getting after education. And I didn't even really pay attention to uniform until I saw those ugly ass Air Force PT uniforms that you guys wear. And then I said, okay, these guys and gals are in the Air Force. No, I'm just kidding. You know, the Navy's got the absolute ugliest PT uniform. God bless them. I love my shipmates. But man, that yellow top, you know, I mean, come on.
Yes. Maybe maybe we'll get better at that since I'm getting in the sea. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Switch it up for them. Switch it up for them. I got a question. So, I mean, you mentioned a lot or just about the commitment levels, right? That, you know, if someone's going to serve 4 or 6, and which is great to hear, because I don't think I've ever heard a leader say that. So with that, though, comes, well, what's next, right? Which is leads us to that transition piece. So, you know, being that it's the message is, you know, if you're going to serve 4, 6, or how long you're going to, then the second part of that conversation should maybe be, when you do serve that 4, 6, or 8, here's what we have to look that looks like for a transition period for you. Have you considered that when you were with Second Air Force? Is it something that you're looking at, that you looking at as far as a framework of how, because we're on education, is further than that education is how do we educate more airmen in something that's important, which is literally the rest of their lives.
Yeah. So I think that it all comes with a solid leader development strategy. You know, what's funny is I just read the Army leader development strategy and the Navy one. And I think for the United States Air Force, we're going to have to tighten that up for us, where it is clear from an E1 or E2 how their development needs to go. And oh, by the way, that's changed today for all services compared to when we came in, right? You know, the airmen that we need for 2030, or the, you know, soldiers we need for 2030 look very different than when I came in. And so that will be one of the things that I'm focused on, which is, you know, what is our leader development strategy? And is that translated down to the lowest level? And some of it is also, you know, getting back to the basics. You know, now I will get back to when we first came in. When we first came in, man, E4s were running stuff, at least from what I remember. You know, my first squadron was 74th
Mafia, baby.
4 Mafia, yeah.
The E4s were running stuff. Senior airman, my first supervisor was a senior airman, and he ran a fighter squadron operations section, you know, as an E4. Today, you rarely have E4s doing that. Now, if we're the smallest we've ever been, then we probably need to get back to our E4s and E5s and E6s truly being empowered to handle their business, so that our senior leaders and our commanders can focus on the things that only they can focus on. That's what I would like to see us get after more.
That's incredible. I remember when John and I were at Fairchild, and we had that opportunity to go into the the refueling simulator, and
C-135 simulator. Yeah.
Yep, and I think it was a couple other ones. Yeah, the simulators of different aircraft we could bring in and everything, and you know, well, I think we were goes at our first stations. I think I got a no-go on one of them, but you know, we asked, well, what's the average rank or, you know, or age of someone that's behind here doing this? And it's like, oh, well, I just got out of high school, you know, 8 months ago. And they're, you know, and they finished with this tech school. The next thing you know, they could be in theater, you know, within 6 to 8 months of them being in the Air Force, you know, doing real world missions. And we just looked at each other, and John was like, you know, this is why we're kicking the Russians' ass, right? Number one is because we, as you could tell,
absolutely.
But it also spoke a testament of what the empowerment of the enlisted and what we can do, you know, with trained properly and pushing it out there. So I think that's a fantastic approach, is getting, you know, getting us out there, you know, being leaders, you know, in those capacities. Again, a lot of things have changed, ebbed and flowed, but I remember when we first came in, it was all about that leadership. What are you going to do?
Oh yeah. Speaking of that, Victoria, can you pull up our teammates from Freestyle Every Day for Everybody Live?
There he is. Hey. All right. So Freestyle Every Day for Everybody Live asks, what is your main priority for NCOs?
We're on this subject.
My main priority for all of our airmen, I really think, so not too much is going to change going into the seat that I'm in. You know, I've been passionate about a few things since I've been a command chief, and really readiness and force posture is first and foremost. We've got a job to do. We are in the United States Air Force or Army, Navy, Marines for a purpose. And so we've got to focus on readiness and our force posture. And I'll talk about that, or maybe we'll all talk about it. John, I know you talk about it all the time. You know, we've got people who want to kick our tail. And so we can't not talk about that, you know, so that is a focus for me for our NCO Corps. The other one is people operations. So what I'll be working hard on is how do we onboard and retain the best talent in the United States Air Force that we can. It all has to do with talent management, people operations, the policies and the processes that we have. And if we have old policies and processes that are from when I came in, they're probably not applicable for now. And so we've got to get after that. So that'll be one of my focus areas. And then, you know, the other one, you know, is growing and building strong, resilient airmen and families. So our family members matter. You know, if we can take care of our families, and the airmen's going to stay in. You know, if the family's happy, the airman's going to be happy. And so we've got to grow that. And then, of course, culture is always, to me, a foundational competency. We've got to have a culture where it breeds trust, where we hold each other accountable at all levels. And I know that there's broken trust at times from our NCO Corps, you know, that they don't feel the senior leaders are held accountable. So we got to get after that. And mutual respect, you know, that if we respected each other, there wouldn't be the sapper issues that are going on and all of that stuff. So that's where I'm going to focus on. It's been my focus for a while.
You know, hey, so Ron, you brought up the KC-135. You want to know what we graded? Victoria, can you bring up our good buddy Jason Hodges? Joe, I know you know him very well, the chief master out there. Jason gives us an A+ on our simulator. So
100. All right.
Thanks for making us look good in front of SimSAF 19. All right.
We're going to take that.
Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, you know, speaking of that is when we were at Fairchild, the really we bring that up a lot because that's really I'm going to go ahead and say that was the birth of the Ron and John show and what we've seen what we're trying to achieve. And you know, when one of the things that when we got to that base and we're speaking, we realized that there was a suicide that had happened a few weeks prior, unfortunately. And you know, because of the topics that we talk about on stage, it was a very open conversation with the entire wing. And some of those things come up. It's like, you know, that from the airmen in the audience is, you know, what can we do to be on the lookout for this kind of stuff? Just so many questions, you know, that goes along with that. And which is something that's near and dear to all of our hearts. So I know that from reading some of the objectives that you have on the list, that was one of the topics. So if you could share with the audience out there, what is it that you see that the Air Force is doing and plans to do to lead by example on this very tough and difficult topic?
Yeah. So I will tell you, when people ask me what keeps me up at night, that keeps me up at night. The thought that we have service members that think there's no other way than to harm themselves. That keeps me up at night because there's so many other ways, but there's a sense of hopelessness and or a sense of not belonging. And so I will tell you that there's no program that any service or company or organization can do that is going to eradicate suicide, right? There are things that we can do to set the tone from the top. And I think that we have, But where it's applicable is, you know, again, I push everything back down to the smallest organizational level at every one of our organizations. You know, for us, it's a squadron, but where does culture happen? Where does belongingness happen? It's going to happen at the squadron level for us. And so each squadron has to have a culture of belonging. You know, if you run the numbers, and I can't remember what they are, so I don't want to throw out bad numbers, but if you run the numbers of suicides of service members deployed, it is, I think, in the single digits, you know, for the past. Do you know what they are, John?
No, I don't know exactly because I've been removed from it, but I think you're right. They're in the single digits.
They're in the single digits for the last 10 years or less. So why is that? You know, and what I would offer, you know, is when you're downrange, you know, there is a sense of purpose, there's a sense of belonging, and that is a powerful thing. There's connectedness. Then you come back home, and yes, you have the challenges and maybe the problems that you feel like you've had, but you know, they were still there downrange, but you had that sense of togetherness of your brothers and sisters and so forth. The numbers when you are stationed overseas of suicides are, you know, minimal compared to, again, stateside. Why? When you're stationed over at Ramstein or, you know, Patrick Barracks or wherever, there is a sense of connectedness and belonging. And so, you know, it's important that at the headquarters Air Force level and the DOD level that we set the tone, but I think that tone's been set. We've got to get after the culture piece, and it's tough. Yeah, I do think that society and where we are and societal norms have to do with this. And, you know, we could talk for the next couple of hours on what social media and the connectedness that you have with the device more than the connectedness you have with people has to do with this. But I think we've got to get back to eyeball leadership. Supervisors have to be able to look at their people face to face, even to a generation that is uncomfortable with that. We've got to teach them that. So.
Yeah, you know, I think you're all over it, that eyeball to eyeball leadership, because WTF Nation Radio will constantly get a hold of text messages from leaders to service members on all kinds of issues. And that stuff ends up on Twitter and other social media, you know, and that's not the way we do business. You know, leaders do face-to-face engagement. Yeah, is texting a tool, but it's not the way to counsel. It's not the way to give guidance and direction. Hey, I want to ask you another critical issue that I constantly tried to focus on, and then your opinion on both. If one is senior enlisted leaders that practice self-marginalization. You know, a lot of times there's some enlisted leaders that will blame their commander or their boss that they don't have the ability to get out and do the things they want to do. But in reality, you know, the commander doesn't have anything to do with it. The person is just marginalized in themselves and their position. And the other one is professional jealousy. And, you know, where you're at now and how you came up through the ranks, I'm sure you had to deal with that somewhere along the line where somebody would say something like, oh, they just gave it to you because you're a female or something like that. You know, what are your thoughts on both of those issues?
Yeah. You said you were going to throw me some softballs, John.
And these are softballs.
That was like a curveball. So, you know, on, you know, the first part that you're talking about, really, I just think that's shifting blame and not assuming accountability for your own actions. And so, you know, those are conversations you've got to have with the relationship you have to have with your boss and your leader to be able to get after your business. And, you know, as enlisted leaders, we have a different role than our commissioned officers.
Absolutely.
We need to understand that role and be able to get after that and have a relationship with those bosses behind the doors and be able to, again, be tactful and respectful enough to be able to just understand where we need to go. So to me, that's shift and blame. But on the professional jealousy piece.
And just for the record, I call those folks professional jealots. You know, I coined a term there, and now there we go. Jealots. You see, our teammates at Freestyle Every Day for Everybody
They
remember.
already know.
You know? Yeah, I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you, Joe.
No. So, I mean, it's an unfortunate thing. I'll tell you, we don't need jealots because everybody really, there's so much work to be done that we just need to focus on the work that we all have to do. Yeah. And the work that is set out, the race that is set out for Joe Bass is a different race that's for John Troxell and for Ron. We all have a different race that we have to run. And when we can start to understand that, then we're going to be okay. You know,
absolutely.
And I think that's what people need to, I guess, you know, get after. What is their purpose and what's their intent, and quit focusing on somebody else's grass when you need to just water your grass. Is what I would offer people. Does it hurt? It does. But I'll tell you, that's where, for me personally, especially as a female, where, you know, I tend to get more in my feelings than my husband. So that's me. I'm not saying that that's all females, but for me, I used to get in my feelings more than my husband, where, again, having an Army husband, he's like, hey babe, you got to shake the dust off your feet and keep moving. You know, when people are jealous, you know, you're doing the right thing, shake the dust off, keep moving, worry about yourself and handle your business, take care of your troops and go about your business. So I don't spend a lot of time with that. What I hope is that I create a culture where those jealots realize that, man, there's nothing to be jealous about. Stay in your lane, do what you need to do, water your own grass, be the best you that you can be, and life is going to be good.
Mm-hmm. Keep sipping on that hater in that corner over there. That's what they can do.
Hey, Ron, should we hit the future sim staff with some rapid fire here?
I think it's time. I think it's time. Let's hit her.
Okay, so
kick it off, brother.
All right, so I gotta ask a question. You know, your husband Ron, Army veteran, hua, you know, stuff like that. So how did you guys meet? You know, I mean, how did an airman and a soldier meet, especially a hua one?
Man, you're all in my business, John. So here I am, between the three of us. Here I am, brand new airman, get to Pope Air Force Base. Ron's a
I knew it. I was going to say it, Bill.
PFC at Fort Bragg, you know, he's a PFC, I'm an E1. And where does every good, respectable female airman go their first week at Pope? The Fort Bragg NCO Club.
Yes. Riley Road. Yes.
I'm not proud of that, but we did meet there. You know, there was a gang, you know, there's a gang of Army guys there, and he saw me walking down, you know, the line at the Fort Bragg NCO Club, and he swooped me up, you know, because Army guys, you never know when you're gonna go out and deploy or go the field.
Right.
So yeah. You know, I used to laugh and tell our Air Force airmen, I'm like, y'all, yeah, I mean, they wait a long time before they ask a girl out on a date. You know, the Army guys are like, hey man, they could go to the field next, you know, in 2 days. Yeah. So to all the airmen that I didn't date, it's because you took too long. But but that's where we met. And you know, we laugh because we're like, man, if our airmen and soldiers were like us, man, they'd be like, we'd tie him up. He used to come and get me in his Humvee that said PFC Bass, and he taught me how to drive a Humvee.
Wow.
So yeah,
that's awesome.
He had his own Humvee as a PFC? What the hell?
He's a driver, man. He's a driver.
Okay, all right.
Dude, you're trying to impress an airman that just straight out of basic, you know? So your name's on your Humvee. You might as well be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, you know, even though you're a PFC.
Oh, man. Well, so Joe, you said something earlier. This is how I form my rapid fire. I just kind of keep my ears open. And you mentioned something earlier that I think we need to go a little deeper on. What exactly did you do to get put on that blotter report?
So I don't think that I can share that one, Ron. So listen, I think that's probably close hold. That's like 30 years ago stuff. But I will tell you, I worked for AAFES, got in some trouble, did some things that you never want your dependent child to do, and yeah, banned from every installation in Hawaii. So, every installation. So I hadn't been back to an installation in Hawaii, and yeah. So yeah, I can't go there, Ron. I'm not gonna let you suck me in. But.
Hey, I just go by the rule of thumb that John lays out for me. Ron, you ask the questions and they control the answers. So that was
great.
Good.
You won't
the other part.
Hey, let me add to that. I never told my recruiter. So I was on delayed enlistment.
I hope he ain't listening, right?
Never told my recruiter, just got in the Air Force. You know what turned me around? Supervisors, strong supervisors who didn't give up, who saw potential in a young, at the time, Airman Machaki, who was wilding out at the Fort Bragg NCO Club. They still saw potential. And that's where I think we need to get back to as leaders, that we look for the potential in the recruits that are coming into the service today, because they are smart, they are bright, they are different than us, and that's a good thing. And they have the skill sets that we need for a 2030 fight. We need to not discount it.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Okay, so here's my other rapid fire question. So, the services have a golf tournament every year. I think you know that all the service senior enlisted.
Yep.
And for 4 years that I was the SEAC, the Army won it every year except one, and the Coast Guard won it. So what kind of leadership are you going to institute to get the Air Force from finishing 5 of 5 services in that golf tournament?
Yeah. So I'm about to put a memorandum out to the entire Air Force, and every E9 who can shoot below an 82, call me up, and we're there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We
have a lot of them. I could name a bunch of them right now. So I just think they've had a hard time getting here, but we'll figure that out.
Do you play?
Yeah, I mean, that's.
I have clubs. Yeah.
Well, whenever you do that, please invite me back. I'll meet you at the 19th hole, and if the Air Force wins, I'll buy everybody a drink. How's that?
Yeah.
I'm going to go with my last one of just something that's tell us something that not everybody would know about Joe Bass. What's something unique that is it you like to shoot? Is it that you have some weird talent? What is it that's unique about Joe Bass?
Wow. So I used to know every Eazy-E song out there. I promise you, by word for word, and used to make my dad mad. Don't forget, Army officer. So he didn't appreciate that I knew about easily I approach the microphone because I ain't no joke. Okay, so he would
tell
die.
you. Okay, we'll stop there.
So I used to very much appreciate an Eazy-E album. Not so much today, but
That is awesome.
Well, hey, Joe. Yeah. So thank you so much for being on the show today. As I told you when I called you when you got selected, it wasn't a surprise to me. And to tell you the truth, I have to be truthful. I didn't even realize it till like a day later when I read it in social media that, you were going to be the first female. I mean, I knew that, but I've always known you as a leader. I've always known you as someone that takes no crap off anybody and ain't afraid to go into the SEAC's office and say, hey, look, this is the direction I think we ought to get going here with things. And so I just know that the Air Force as good a hands as they've been in the last 4 years or 3 years with K-Wright, that you're not going to miss a beat. So good luck to you. And please come back and see us once you've been in the seat for a while. And, you know, and you get an opportunity maybe, you know, to relax for a second, you know, and come back and let us know how things are going.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Hey, Ron, it was great to meet you. I feel like you're family already, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we do. That's the effect, right? That's the effect.
Good. So, and to you, 𝘂, thanks for having me. I'll tell you, you caught me at the best timing, because it's hard to say no to John Troxell, but he calls me up and he's like, hey, Joe, you know, the NCO Live would love for you to get on then the day before I've got a Ron and John show, and I think you'd be great. And then all of a sudden floods of, you know, dozens of emails came in trying to get me on. And I've unfortunately had to say no to all of them, because I really do want to respect that, one, I'm in transition and I'm not in the seat yet. And plus I'm doing a whole lot of preparation and reading and get my mind ready and focused for that. So this is one of 2 engagements. I'm on an event tomorrow that John got me on, and I look forward, but being able to talk to NCOs, you know, and learn from them and pour into them, I think, you know, is a highlight for me. So I'm excited to do that, but I've regretted all the other engagements until after August timeframe. So it was fun to hang out with you guys a little bit and to spend some time with my Army brothers.
Hey, and just so you know, Joe, Ron and I will be in Goodfellow Air Force Base, your old stomping ground, 17 to 21 August. And we're going to do our 19 August show will be live, and we'll have a bunch of airmen and soldiers with us there. So
now, you know, that puts me in a happy place. So 𝘂, I can't remember if you went to Goodfellow, but you know, there is a Fort Goodfellow, Camp Goodfellow, and a USS Goodfellow. So you've got all services there, some of the best Americans ever. And the community of San Angelo is probably one of the best communities that I've ever been around ever. So you guys are in for a treat. Eat some good barbecue for me, and then have some of the best breakfast burritos. Just ask any airman, they'll tell you where to get them.
Well, thanks again, my friend. God bless you. And I'll see you tomorrow night. So to the audience, tune in tomorrow night at the same time as the Ron and John show, NCOPD Live tomorrow night. Chief Bass will be on with us. I'm a special co-host on NCOPD Live, thanks to D. Hicks for allowing me to do it. And Master Sergeant RLGJ, Richard L. Green Jr. will be the host. And we will have Chief Master Sergeant Joe Bass. We'll also have Sergeant First Class Janina Simmons on the show, first African-American woman to graduate from Ranger School. Going to be a great show. So Joe, thanks. And I'll see you tomorrow night.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And everybody, thank you for joining the show. Brought to you by Veterans Landing Group. Remember that we can ETS, PCS, retire wherever it is that you go. So if you're interested in a refinance or a new purchase, we're your special operations VA financing. Just let us know what we can do to help you out. And Joe, thanks again so much. It's always awesome to meet anyone that John has served with. I mean, it's just we've been having a all-star lineup, and it's just awesome to see no quit in you. Congratulations on your next position. And I'm gonna end the show like this and see if you remember this one. Woke up quick at about noon. Just thought that I had to be in Compton soon. And we'll stop right there. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week on the Ron and John Show. Boom.
Y'all next week. We'll see you tomorrow night on NCOPD Live, Joe. God bless you all. Take care.